Hi guys, I'm Kennedy and I'm going to talk about the books that I have read this year. So before we jump into it, my reading goal for this year was 30 books. I'm currently at 24 and it's December 19th, which means I have 12 days to read 6 books and I'm probably going to do it. I'm really bad at accepting defeat and saying, oh no, I didn't accomplish this thing that I wanted to accomplish. So like, come to me in 12 days and ask me if I've read 6 books. The answer is probably yes, and I'm going to be looking at you with sunken in eyes and exhaustion, but I'm going to be like, I didn't. And that's all that matters.
Hey guys, you might be wondering why I'm here looking like this and not the way that I just looked, and it's because I read a list of books in the beginning of that video, and then I realized throughout the video you'll see that I'm like, there's a book missing, there's another book missing. There were about 6 books missing, so I'm going to give you a more accurate book list. I had a goal of 30 books this year and I have read 28 and I will hit 30, don't worry. I have like a week to read 2 books. That's so doable, but I'm going to read you all the books I read this year. So I read the entire Harry Potter series by J.K. Rowling, On the Road by Jack Kerouac, Beloved by Toni Morrison, Love Theoretically and Not in Love by Ali Hazelwood, Mile High and the Right Move by Liz Tom Ford, Flowers for Algernon by Daniel Keyes, Bunny and Rouge by Mona Awad, The Black Unicorn by Audre Lorde, A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas, Excuse Me While I Ugly Cry, My Week with Him, and Confessions of an Alleged Good Girl by Joya Goffney, The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides, By the Book by Jasmine Gilroy, Alcestis in the Underworld by Nina Murray, The Kiss Countdown by Etta Easton, Outdrawn by Deanna Gray, All My Kisses for You by Monica Murphy, and Mean Spirited by Nick Roberts. Yeah, I don't mention all of these books throughout the video because that would be ridiculous, but if you're wondering, all 28 books I've read so far, there they are.
No, I'm not yet at 30 books. I'm gonna say I did a good job because this year I was like, no, I'm gonna get back into reading. Like, I'm tired of reading feeling like a burden when it was something that used to be so much fun. And so for me to go from last year reading generously 4 books that weren't related to school, 24 books, actually one of these is a school book, 23 books that aren't related to school is kind of amazing. So let's get into length. The shortest book I read this year was 136 pages and it was The Black Unicorn by Audre Lorde. It was a collection of her poems about the experiences of Black women. My English professor, does he count as an English professor? His classes always had really long names, but my English professor gave it to me because I was just really interested in it and I wanted to look into some of Audre Lorde's work for an essay that I was writing, and he was like, here, just have this book. And I was like, that is so nice. So I read the entire thing. Like, I was just gonna read the things that I needed for class, but then I read the entire thing and it was lovely. I'm not sure what I gave it. I gave it an 8 out of 10 and I said I didn't understand some of the poems, but that's a me thing. Audre, you're perfect. Because she is. And me not getting it is probably just because I have a lot more life to live, and some of her poems, like her subject matter, I was like, I'm not resonating, but I'm 20 and I was 19 when I read it. Like, I'm sure when I'm 40, I'm gonna circle back and be like, clock it.
Clock it. You waited till we left. Clock it. Snuck in here. Clock it.
The longest book I read was 912 pages and it was Harry Potter Order of the Phoenix. J.K. Rowling, come to the front. We'll talk about this now. Knowing when to shut up is important. Knowing when perhaps you've said enough is so important. Coming from me, I talk all the time and I don't know when to shut up. But the thing is that I'm not typing it. Favorite movie in the series is Half-Blood Prince, so that's number 6, and my favorite book is Goblet of Fire, so that is number 4. This is just sandwiched in the middle of greatness and it's so long. It's like crossing the absolute longest bridge, and it's an important bridge. Like, there's a lot of things important happening in this book. I would say in terms of pussyfooting around, there's the least amount of pussyfooting in this book. Like, they were getting to business from page 3. I feel like especially in the first 3, we're just doing a little bit of nothing for 100 pages, and I get it, because like, what are you, 12? Like, what are you really supposed to be doing until everything goes wrong? This book, they got in it from like page 3 and they were in it until you close the book, but it was a lot. It was a lot, like almost 1,000 pages. I just don't think we're needed to tell this story, but I had fun. What did I rate this book? All that shit I gave this book as an 8 out of 10 as well. I said I did not like this movie in the slightest, but the book was so good. This is really true. When I first watched this movie, I was like, this shit is agitating, it's actually the movie that I start with now because this book really changed my perspective.
Change your perspective, that's what miracles happen.
Times that the movie rushed through things that actually made the book much richer and way more fun. The Harry X Cho plot went from cute to insufferable in about 2 chapters. Yeah, she was tweaking. She was tweaking, and y'all have all these witches and wizards and warlocks and no therapists. Go find her one because she was getting on my nerves, and Harry's too. So now I'm gonna give a few awards. What are my favorite books? What are my least favorite books? Who had the worst cover? Who had the best cover? Who really drew me in? Who shocked me for the better? Who shocked me for the worst? We'll get into all of that. So my favorite book covers of the year are gonna go to All My Kisses for You by Monica Murphy and Rouge by Mona Awad. We'll get on All My Kisses for You at a later date. In about a couple minutes. This cover is everything to me. Mona Awad, the woman that you are, and whomever drew this, you guys don't understand, and you have to read the book. I'm gonna try to make this a spoiler-less year-end recap, but to understand, like, this is a rose, this is also a jellyfish. Like, you might be like, Kennedy, why do you care that it's a jellyfish? Read the book. Read the book and you'll care why it's a jellyfish. This cover is so good, and I remember picking up this book and being like, is this like a rose that's also on fire? Like, is it a flame? I just remember being like, this cover is gorgeous, like really, really fucking pretty. And it's deep too. Like, you have to understand what's going on here, and you don't because you need to read it. And then All My Kisses for You by Monica Murphy. This is just my vibe, like all of the pink, the kiss mark. I actually bought this book based entirely off the cover. I was in a Target and I was like, that's pretty and I want to own it. Biggest mistake of my life. You can't judge a book by its cover. This book was horrible. It was so bad. And we'll get into why I actually hate this book in a little bit, but is this not gorgeous? I'm gonna put my phone lock screen on the screen. That's my vibe. Least favorite covers, both of these Liz Tom Ford books. The cityscape, like, and it's because this is called like the Windy City series, and all of these books take place in Chicago. But what is that supposed to do for me personally? I think that these are lazy, phoned in ass covers. Oh my goodness, I'm realizing that I'm missing a book in here. I also read Not in Love by Ali Hazelwood. And the reason that I remember that is because both of these Ali Hazelwood covers are ugly down. If you're gonna give me a cartoon, I have to like the cartoon cover. And I don't like these. I think that they're both really ugly, and the books weren't good, but we'll get into that. So now we're gonna get into the book that made me cry. Which book had Kennedy with tears streaming down her face? Which book had me hooked in emotionally? I'll tell you the answer. It was Flowers for Algernon. This book is just sad. It is just pitiful and sad and really unfortunate. And the story of it is so beautiful. I don't want to spoil anything, but this book has been out forever and I feel like I'm late. But if you haven't read it, would I recommend you read it? If you're in higher education, yes, I would recommend you read it. It says a lot about the value that we put on intelligence and people who we perceive as intelligent in society, and how we perceive people who are perceived as unintelligent in society. And therefore, I think that if you're in higher education, you should read it. But if you're just like chilling and you just want to read something a little fun, this is not fun. It's gonna upset you. I loved it. Oh, I loved it. I rated this book, I want to say 10 out of 10. Yep, I said 10 out of 10 made me frown, and it did make me frown. The book that made me the happiest, had me kicking my feet like a little schoolgirl, I'm gonna give it to Joya Goffney. I'm gonna give it to Confessions of an Alleged Good Girl and Excuse Me While I Ugly Cry. Both of these were just like fun, cute, young people falling in love, and like the stakes were high, but they weren't that high, and everybody was just cute and whimsical and finding joy. And I really liked and enjoyed that. And these books kind of just had me like, both of these books I read within a day. Like, I was hooked. I finished Confessions of a Alleged Good Girl at 6 a.m. And I started reading it around 10. These books just had me hooked. They were so cute. I would recommend these to anyone who likes romance. If you're not reading Black romance and you're a Black girl, I'm gonna pull you to the front and tell you that you need to see yourself in these books. You need to see your people in these books. You're putting yourself through hell. And now, in true hater fashion, what book pissed me off? What book made me the absolute angriest? It's gonna be the pretty book, All My Kisses for You. This book was just baseless, annoying, rich white kids running around doing absolutely nothing, needing to find some business really deeply. Everybody in this book needed to find something to do. I gave this book 1 out of 10 stars. I said, girl, what the fuck? And that's exactly how I feel. What happened? It was a whole bunch of nothing. So basically, let's get into the plot of this book. This is the Lancaster Prep Next Generation. So I guess there's already a whole series about her mama and her daddy and her aunties and her uncles. Don't care. I don't care. I've never been less interested in a series in my life. I don't want to know about your mama. I don't want to know about your friends. I don't know about your auntie, uncle, grandma. And then I saw that there's a whole family tree for these motherfuckers and like how we got here. Eradicate all of them. Horrible book. So this book is about a girl named Willow, and she's like the it girl at her school supposedly, but she's like super insecure for reasons that she really never delivers on. Like, she never really says why, but basically she's just like rich as fuck for no reason. Like, her parents, this gives like her parents are in the 1%. Like, she goes to Lancaster Prep, her name is Willow Lancaster. Like, her parents are paying the light bill in the school. It's really crazy. And she wears red lipstick and wears her hair in a high ponytail, and she wears Chanel shoes, and that's about all of the basis that her character has. No depth. Rich girl. She just rich. That's about all they have. And then she happens to, they want me to be convinced that she falls in love with this like head football player quarterback named Rhett, R-H-E-T-T. Don't piss me off. And he's annoying. He's kind of gross. He's just like horny teenage boy, also baseless. Like, the only thing that we get from him is that he plays football and has sex, and you're like, okay, and what else about you is interesting? Like, I can name 70 men who do that off the top of my head, you know? But yeah, I mean, the book tried to be messy. Basically, she's in Italy for a year. I don't know what high school has study abroad, but I guess when you're rich, you do whatever the fuck you want and you don't have to explain it. But she comes back from study abroad in Italy for a year. There's this new boy at the school. His name is Rhett. He's causing a ruckus because apparently all the girls just want to fuck on Rhett, and it's like, couldn't be me. She gets there and she finds out that her best friend is dating the guy that she had this super big crush on for freshman and sophomore year, because she was away for her junior year and came back as a senior. So she feels like she's missed everything. The school is so different. They have a new principal. Her best friend is dating this guy that she had a crush on for 2 years. Her best friend, she's not her best friend anymore because she got cut off. That girl's nasty. She's nasty, gutter butt, and needed to get slapped. Like, I didn't like her at all in the slightest. She was horrible. But basically, like, she's the school good girl and he's like the quarterback who drinks and has sex, and she's like, no, but I need him. And so it's a story about her changing herself for him. Flop. Oh, and before I move on, the principal of the school, get out of children's business. There's absolutely no reason that he should be calling children into his office and being like, are you dating? You can't date Rhett because he's on the football team and we need to win the championship. Find some business. How's your music program? Are your arts programs thriving? Like, get out of this little boy's business. If he wants to date this boring ass girl and she wants to date this boring ass boy, let them do that. Like, are they like, if they're not hurting anybody, who cares? He needed to find some business so bad. He was annoying. He was all up in the kids' juice. Like, that was pissed me off. Everybody who liked ACOTAR, come to the front, and I'm gonna actually implore you to read something else. I'm going to implore you to read something else. This book is horrid. This book is so bad. ACOTAR is about this girl named Farah. It starts off as this like Beauty and the Beast retelling, and then it just goes completely off the rails. The first act, you think we're getting this Beauty and the Beast hostage Stockholm syndrome type book. The second act is her frolicking around a big ass house, genuinely for 100 pages, just frolicking. She's just doing this. And apparently they're trying to convince me that she falls in love with the guy who captured her. But like, maybe if she kept going, she could have convinced Hope.
That's great. Keep saying it. Just keep saying it. Keep saying it out loud. And maybe you will convince Hope, because you won't be convincing anybody else. So dream on.
Because she wasn't convincing me. Like, they just weren't in love. She had Stockholm syndrome and he was just there. He was just there. Like, every conversation they had, I was like, what are we ever talking about? And then like his big curse, it wasn't that he was this big beast, it was that he had like a mask on. But baby, the mask covers right here. It was a masquerade mask, so like you can see his face. Like the only thing you're missing is like his like brow ridge. Like, you know what he looks like. So that just wasn't really hitting on any cylinders for me there. And then we get to the third act of the book, and it's just completely different genre. All of a sudden, this is action. There's someone trying to kill us. We're trying to solve riddles. Can she solve the riddle? No, because she's illiterate, and her being illiterate is a whole big part of the book. When she first gets to the house, she's like, oh my God, there's this whole big library. I never learned how to read. And then she spends 100 pages frolicking in the forest. So then when they try to get her to solve the riddle, which is the easiest riddle ever, the answer to the riddle was love. And she's just like, I don't know, because I can't read. And like there's hints on the walls and she can't read them because she frolicked for 100 pages. Don't piss me off. The best part about this book is that plot twist. That plot twist at the end when you find out what's really going on with Tamlin. That was good. That was good. That makes the whole book worth it. I've actually told my friends that you need to read this book, and I apologize for the first 200 pages of it, but you're gonna forgive me for that last 100 pages. I hate Act 3. Of every single book, I think Act 3 is always the weakest act, and it's the best act of this book. Will I read the rest of them? No, they're a little bit too long and a little bit too unserious. And like Sarah J. Maas, we're not friends. Like, I don't trust you. I don't believe in you. I don't think that you're gonna fulfill me. So other takeaways from this year. I really love Black romance. I mean, you would think that that's obvious as like a young Black woman that I would love Black romance, but my sisters do not be reading Black romance. Oh goodness. My sisters don't be looking at their people on the page. Please do. Please do. I think it's so important that when you're like reading about these like happy situations and like these people falling in love and these people having these amazing like love stories, that you're seeing yourself on that page too. Like, I'm not saying that you have to exclusively read stories about Black women, but I think that seeing Black women on the page is very important. It's the same way in any other type of media. Like, on Instagram, you should be following Black women who you think are beautiful or who live lives that you aspire to. On TikTok, you should be following Black women whose lives you aspire to. The same thing in your book. Like, you should be taking in media that shows you in a positive light and allows you to internalize yourself positively. And I just really enjoyed that. So that is something that I gravitated towards this year. Let's talk about Mile High by Liz Tomford and how this is a Black romance written by a white woman, which is not an offense on the surface, I don't think. Am I mad about that surface level? I don't know. I'm upset about the way that it's written. I think it's really careless. Yeah, I just didn't like it. I hated every time that we were in the male lead's head. His name is like Xander or Zane or something like that. And he spoke with this very certain way of speaking, and there was just AV just being like thrown at the wall and trying to see what sticks. And it all gave like, I'm gonna write a book about Black people and I've never had a singular Black friend in my life. It was very strange. The second book in the series I read was called The Right Move, and I read this book because one of the only characters in the first book that I liked, it was about him, and it was about Ryan. It was, what is the main girl's first name? Stevie? I think her name is Stevie. It was about her brother falling in love with like her best friend, and it was like a fake dating and they were roommates. My favorite type of thing.
I'm editing right now, but I wanted to pop in with a thought and just say that the right move was much better. It was actually about so Stevie is mixed, her brother Ryan is mixed, and in the second book Ryan is dating, I should have looked her name up before this, but I didn't. It'll be on the screen. Ryan is dating this white woman, and without all of the microaggressions present in Mile High, the right move is very, very enjoyable. And so that makes me think that like she didn't have negative intentions. I think that she was like, the people want black love, and I'm gonna give them black love. But I think that maybe we should let the black authors do that, because it came across poorly. That's all. Bye-bye. Another fake dating and they were roommates. The Kiss Countdown by Etta Easton. Amazing. I love fake dating. If it's fake dating, I'm gonna sit there, I'm gonna open my book, and I'm gonna sip my little drink, and I'm gonna have a good time. I love fake dating. I love forced proximity. It's never gonna get old for me. You know what is getting old for me though? Enemies to lovers. But there's a lot of books missing on here. Did I read more books than I thought? Where's Outdrawn? Yeah, Outdrawn by Deanna Gray. I also read that this year. I'm not sure why some of these books aren't showing up. Goodreads UI is a little crazy, but this did enemies/rivals to lovers so amazingly. It was the fact that they were enemies in like very different ways, and their dynamic wasn't the same. So it's not that like in the workplace, oh, I can't remember her name. It was Sage and somebody else. I won't call her Pastel because that was her nickname. But Pastel was like kind of coming out on top in the workplace. Like everyone loved her. She was the new girl at work. Everyone wanted to hear her ideas. But when it came to, you know, the little comic website, like Sage was still taking that #1 spot. Like she was still rising to the occasion. And I like that there was this back and forth of like, you win sometimes, I win sometimes. When do we help each other? When do we separate work from love? And like how they get into it. And it was just two black girls falling in love with each other, and it was so amazing and cute. And I was so happy the whole time. If this was on the list, I would have said that this was one of the books I kicked my feet for, but the list that I'm looking on is incorrect. I was kicking my feet were in the sky. I gave this book 10 out of 10 stars, no notes. There's absolutely nothing I would change about this book. I thought it was amazing. So I talked a lot about the romance I read this year. I also read some horror thriller. We can get into that. The Silent Patient, 10 out of 10. I know that this book is very popular for like its twist ending and all of that, and I know some people are like it's overhyped. I really enjoyed it. A friend of mine recommended it to me, and I just had the time of my life. I thought it was so interesting. I was very hooked. I really liked the twist. I liked the main character. I enjoyed being in his head. I enjoyed that we weren't in anyone else's head and we were kind of figuring it out with him, and we were lost with him. It was amazing. Bunny by Mona Awad, also a very fun time. I was kind of shocked by how much I enjoyed Bunny. That was another one that was recommended to me by a friend, and she was like, Kennedy, I have to have you read this so that we can talk about it. Amazing. Another twist book that was just a twist that I wasn't gonna guess in a million years. A twist that I wasn't gonna guess in a million years, but I don't even think the twist is the strongest part of this book. It's the disorienting parts of it. It's the part where we're in the narrator's mind and she hasn't a clue what's going on, and her body is acting for her, and she's not really in control of it, and things are happening around her and she's cool with them, but you can feel that like a part of her's pulling back and it's not really her doing these things. I thought that was so well written. My favorite scene in this book is like the first mass hysteria scene. I'm not gonna say like what happens, but it's the first time that she's just like losing it a little bit, and you're reading it and you're like a little bit confused and you're disoriented and you're trying to go with it, but you're not really sure what's happening. So well done. You're feeling the exact amount of disorientation. Oh, I hate when I don't know a word.
You're feeling the same amount of confusion that she's feeling and you're going through it with her. Amazing. Let's get on Mona Awad one more time. Rouge is even better than Bunny for me. Rouge is even better than Bunny for me. I love this book. I love what this book has to say about youth. I love what this book has to say about beauty. I love what this book has to say about self-care. I think this book is absolutely amazing. I think this book also does feeling disoriented very well. I think this book does the process of losing your mind very well, because you just don't wake up one day and you've lost your mind. Like, it slowly starts to happen. I love seeing everyone around her be like, is she cool? Like, what's going on? I loved it. I loved it so much. I loved everything happening with like the dual world, the mirror. Like, I loved everything happening in the mirror. I thought this book was really, 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 really well done. And it just had like such a good mother-daughter dynamic that it was exploring. I feel like a lot of the books I've read this year were about like women's relationships with their mothers. It was very interesting, the take that all of these different authors had on the importance between a relationship between a mother and daughter, and I really liked it. It was fun. It was fun to look into. I think that both of these books fall into the same issue though, and that is that Mona Awad loves pretty words. She loves flowery text. Like her prose just gets a little bit too lost in itself, and it's just a bunch of like gorgeous words to say kind of nothing. I think sometimes she gets a little bit too lost in herself and a little bit too like drowned out in her own prose, and it makes it a little bit less efficient in the storytelling realm. I think that she tells really amazing stories and then gets a little lost stylistically, but does not take away from the strength of the story she's telling. I thought it was really, really, really fucking good. Guys, I think I'm going through this, and there are books that I read this year that aren't on my like book reading goal thing, and I don't understand why. I do remember reading this. I read A Solstice in the Underworld and I gave it 3 out of 10 because I didn't like it. But then I'm like, do I just not like poetry? Like, I did not like this book at all. I can't think of a single poem in this book that I enjoyed. Then the last book I read was the last horror book I read was Mean Spirit by Nick Roberts. Talk about scaring the shit out of me. I was uncomfortable. I was deeply uncomfortable. I was scared. Like, don't bring your dog around me for a week, I think. Like, oh, it was so good. This book is about a dog who has the bad spirits in him. That dog is going to take you to the bad place. But it's also about a family, and it's about trying to figure out how to better yourself and what sacrifices you need to make for the good of your family. The main character in this book are like our narrative character is an alcoholic. Like, his wife divorced him because she was like, you gotta put the bottle down, like, it for the sake of me and our son, like, you gotta put the bottle down. He wasn't willing to put the bottle down. She said, I got to go. I like that. I like when people know when it's time to leave. I really appreciated that part of the book. And then like their son and protecting their son and understanding like, when do you protect a child's innocence and when do you let a child in? Let me tell you something. If I was in a life or death situation, there would be no 6-year-old. There would be no 6-year-old. You would have to go find something to do, a nanny, a daycare, until we figure this out. Because there were so many times where we could have really like fixed the problem, and the 6-year-old was like, my dog, fuck that dog. And then the last book I want to talk about is the book that left me with the most thoughts. This book had me kicking my feet. This book had me angry. This book had me wanting to cry. And that was Confessions of an Electric Good Girl by Joya Goffney. This book is about a young woman from Houston, Texas, who grew up in the church. She's a preacher's daughter. She is a very strict mom, and she is trying to explore and understand her body. She's trying to understand sex. She's trying to navigate relationships, friendships, and she doesn't really know how to do any of that because the church has villainized sex so badly for her that she doesn't know anything about her body, and she's struggling with this condition. And her like ragtag group of friends are trying to like figure out how to make this better for her, because she can't go to her parents and say, hey, I'm having this issue, because her parents are the worst. They're the absolute worst. And like, I think it's such a powerful book. I think it's such an important story. I think that religious trauma that like young Southern Black girls go through is something that needs to be on the page. It needs to be on the screen. Like those stories need to be told, because I can promise you there's thousands of little girls who really need to hear about it. And I don't know, this book had characters who I just hated. Dom, but you know what? Dom gave us the absolute like best parts of this story. Like, he brought the mess when he saw her and Reggie in the car and he said, "Are you gonna fuck this nigga?" Oh it's like his church boy decorum went out the window. He said, "You gonna fuck this nigga for real?" Like, ew. I would have said yes. And now what? Just because what are you gonna do about it, Dominic? And then it was her being like, "Oh, so you think you deserve my body?" He said, "Well, yes." He was messy and he was nasty and her parents were nasty. Him going to her dad, this is spoilers, sorry. Him going to her dad and being like, "Yeah, like Monique was trying to pressure me into having sex." You tried to pressure that girl into having sex 29 times. And you know what? I can't even fully be mad at him there, because I would have been like, 1, 2, 3, 4, like 29 times. Like, at a certain point, also, like, he's a 17-year-old boy. If he wants to have sex, he should go be with the girl who wants to, like, who can have sex with him. Like, I don't know. Like, it's just, he wasn't wrong for leaving, but he was nasty for everything he did after he left. And it was her coming home and her dad had her bags packed at the door because she was hunching. You gotta get out the house. You gotta get out the house because you were hunching. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. This book was so good. It pissed me off. Like, we need to talk about why when Black girls can't give you exactly what you want and they can't perform exactly what you want them to perform, you're ready to kick them out the house. You're ready to dispose of them, like, go away. Her older sister, all her older sister wanted to do was go to art school, and they said, "You should go to hell first." Kicked her ass out the house too. Absolutely crazy. This book was amazing. I could talk about this book for an hour, and I might just have to do a separate video only about this book because I love it so much. And we can go character by character, scene by scene, and I might do that. But I have been yappa for about an hour. The sun is setting. It's almost gone. So that means I need to shut my mouth and go. But it was so nice talking to you guys. These were my books of 2024. Bye.